Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Kaushal Shah and right now I'll be explaining something about the answer paper. We'll be discussing something about the answer paper of biology subject for cyclic test 3, right? So here on your screen you'll be able to see the question paper as well as the answer paper as and when I discuss the answers. So guys, let's begin. The first question for 9th standard biology cyclic test 3 is given alongside is its longitudinal section of a pistil, and you're supposed to answer a couple of questions based on this diagram, right? So this is a diagram given. You guys know that this is a diagram of carpel and there are certain labelings that are given as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're supposed to label the parts which are marked, and that is the first question. So now let's see the answer here. The first part is nothing but pollen tube, right? The second one, if you observe carefully, they are the antipodals. The third one is the polar nuclei. The fourth one is the egg cell, and the last one is the opening of the ovule, which is micropyle. So as you could see here, this is the answer paper, people, and one is pollen tube, antipodal cells, polar nuclei, egg cell, micropyle, right? Let's go to the next question. The second question is, what is the function of stigma? Now, whenever you talk about the function of stigma, it is the upper sticky part of the pistil, right? So stigma serves as a landing place for pollen grains. That is a place where pollen grains land on, and then they will germinate into a pollen tube. Let's go to the third question. What is the function of pollen tube now, right? Once stigma say pollen tube has been developed, what is the function of that? So it is this pollen tube which helps in the transfer of the sperm nucleus to the ovule for fertilization, right? It is going to carry the sperm nucleus from the stigma to the ovule, and that is how they will fertilize the egg cell. The next question is, what is double fertilization? Now this is seen in plants, people, right? So what is double fertilization? It is fertilization taking place twice. First, when the first sperm nucleus fuses with the egg cell, and then the other, that is the second sperm nucleus, fuses with a polar nuclei, which is a secondary polar nuclei, to form a triploid endosperm. So that process is what is known as double fertilization. So that was the first question there. Let's go to the question number B, first and second here. So the first is, what is an antibiotic? And name the first antibiotic which is produced. If you guys are observing, this question is just for 2 marks. So obviously you're supposed to answer also accordingly. So the answer is very simple. Antibiotic is a chemical secreted by one organism that has the power or that can kill or inhibit the growth of some other living organism, right? So that is what is an antibiotic, and the first antibiotic which was discovered or produced was penicillin, right? So that is about the B, A, first and second answer. Now let's go to the question number 2 in that, and that is, give 3 industrial functions of fungi. We know fungi has a lot of industrial importance also. So let's name 3 important functions, because this is a 3-mark question and they have asked 3 functions. So you are supposed to clearly mention 3 functions. Let me just tell you here. The first one is bread making, as you can see here, right? That is the first industrial function. Second one is brewing industries to produce alcohol, right? And the third one is production of antibiotic, and that is penicillin. In bread and brewing industry, it is yeast which is used. For penicillin, we know it is the Penicillium notatum fungus which is used, right? So that was the question on antibiotics. Let's now go to question number 2A. So here they have asked certain questions and we are supposed to give proper terms of each of the following. So let's start with the first one. Elongated, thin-walled cells whose cell walls are thickened only at the corners. Now this is a type of tissue which is seen in plant, which is known as collenchyma, right? So you can say collenchyma is that thing that we are supposed to answer there. Okay, now let's go to the second question. Tissues formed from only one type of cell. Any tissue which is just from any one same type of cell, it is what is known as simple tissue. So here is the answer to that question, and that is simple tissue. After that comes the third question. Tough connective tissue that joins bones together. So this is a tissue which will keep the bones together and that will connect bone to bone. And the answer is very simple. It is ligaments. Here is the answer where the cursor is moving. So we have ligaments here. Okay, let's try to understand now the fourth question here. And the fourth question is parenchyma cells with chloroplast in their cytoplasm. Now these are some specialized type of parenchyma and they are seen only in the leaves of the plant, and the correct answer is chlorenchyma. Right? You can write chlorenchyma cells or chlorenchyma, it means one and the same. Let's go to the last part of this question, and that is the only living cell which is found in xylem tissue. Just to remind you, xylem is a complex tissue. It has 4 types of cells, but only one of them is living, and that is xylem parenchyma. Rest, all the 3 are the dead cells, right? So yeah, that was all about the giving proper terms. Let's go to the next question, and that is B1, and in that there are 2 questions. The first one is of 3 marks, and the question is, give the characteristics of a flower pollinated by wind. So here we are observing and we are going to talk about the flower which undergoes wind pollination. So what are the characteristics of such kind of flower? It's a proper answer that you will have to write, and all these points that you can see here should be covered in your answer. Let's understand that. The first one, flower need not be large and showy. Why? Because it doesn't have to attract insects, right? It need not be large and showy. Flowers are often dull green color. Flowers need not produce any scent or even nectar, right? Because it is not going to help attract insects here because it is a wind pollinated flower. Next, anther and stigma should hang out of the flower, because if they are inside the flower, like suppose this is the anther and stigma, it is inside the petal portion, wind won't be able to take this properly, so it has to be above that, so it is hanging out of the flower. And the last point is anthers should be loosely attached to the filaments so that with a blow of wind they can be easily carried away, right? So yeah, these are the characteristic features of flowers which will reproduce by wind pollination, right? Okay, let's go to the second question of B, and that is explain the term heterostyle, right? And cleistogamy. 2 simple terms, important there. So let's see that. Heterostyle, it is a condition in which anther and the stigma grows at a different height. So the male part and the female part are not at the same level. This basically is going to favor what is known as cross-pollination. The second one is known as cleistogamy. Now in this cleistogamy condition, the petals of the flower always remains closed. And as it doesn't open only, there is no chance of cross-pollination. So we say cleistogamy may, it is self-pollination taking place when the flowers are closed. So that is all about cleistogamy. Now, let's go to question 3A. It is based on an experiment. So just see the diagram here, and on the basis of that, there are a couple of questions that we need to answer, right? So look at the following picture and answer the questions. If you see the picture, there are 4 jars in which they are named as A, B, C, and D. A contains soda lime, B contains lime water, C contains germinating seeds, and the D contains lime water again, right? And they're all connected through the tubes there, which are corked. Now, let's understand the question one by one, and then we'll be seeing the answers, right? So, first question, identify the aim of the experiment, right? So what is the aim of the experiment here? See, there is lime water here before and after the germinating seeds, and that is generally the one which absorbs carbon dioxide. So here the aim of the experiment is to prove that carbon dioxide is given out by germinating seeds during respiration, right? Okay, let's go to the second question. What is the function of soda lime here? Now, this is what we need to understand. What is the function of soda lime? Soda lime is a chemical which absorbs carbon dioxide from air. So whatever carbon dioxide would be entering from the air would be absorbed by the soda lime there, so that whatever air enters and goes near the plant or passes the lime water will not contain any carbon dioxide. And that is how we will be able to understand the, the aim of the experiment and do the procedure properly. Okay. Let's go to the third question. What alternative things you can use instead of soda lime? So instead of soda lime to absorb carbon dioxide, what can be used? The answer is KOH, or what is known as potassium hydroxide can be used. It also does the same function of absorption of carbon dioxide. Right? Let's go to the fourth question. Lime water in which flask will turn milky? Now understand this, people. Here in flask A, we have soda lime, right? So whatever carbon dioxide would be present in the air would dissolve here, right? Now it will be absorbed. In flask B, the air goes, but it doesn't contain any carbon dioxide, so it is not going to turn milky. And now the air without carbon dioxide is going to enter flask C. Here it is obviously respiration which is going to take place, and the germinating seeds will be releasing carbon dioxide, and that will enter flask D. So the correct answer where the the which flask will have the lime water turn milky, the answer is flask D. Okay, and the last question is, name the process shown by the germinating seeds in this experiment. Yeah, we are trying to prove that it is the process of respiration. So the correct answer there is respiration, right? Okay, so that was about that question. Let's move on to the next question. The next one is differentiate between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So let's try to understand the distinguish between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Here they have not done in 2 columns. You can do it in 2 columns also, and it is absolutely correct. So let's see. Aerobic respiration, it occurs in the presence of oxygen, a very important point, right? As compared to that, if you compare it with anaerobic, it occurs in the absence of oxygen. The next point is the end product of aerobic respiration is CO2, water, right? They are the 2 kind of end products which are there. Here, if you talk about anaerobic respiration, the end products are, I would say, ethanol and carbon dioxide. So they are also different. And then comes the last point, how many ATPs are produced. So aerobic respiration, 38 ATPs are produced. Anaerobic, only 2 ATPs are produced, right? So this is the answer for distinguish between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Let's go to the second question. That is, what write the chemical equation of anaerobic respiration in plants. Now they have specified about plants, so we have to be very careful about what we write, right? The reaction would be, the equation, chemical equation would be C6H12O6. In the absence of oxygen, so you need not write oxygen, will directly give us what is known as 2C2H5OH, which is nothing but ethanol, plus 2CO2, that is carbon dioxide, plus 2 ATP, right? So this is the equation which has been asked, anaerobic respiration in plants. Let's go to the next question now. And when I talk about next question, it is ATP is known as the energy currency of the cell. Give reason, right? It's give reason. Let's try to understand the answer here. ATP is required in the body to carry out all life process wala activity, all metabolic activities, everything, whatever our body does is does by spending ATP only, and hence ATP is known as the energy currency of the cell, because without that our cells cannot function at all, right? So that is about the give reason. Let's go to the next question. That is question number 4A. Now again, it is a diagram based question, so observe the diagram carefully, and on the basis of that we are going to answer the question. This is one important question. This is the diagram of maize grain, people, and the first question is label the parts A to D, right? As you can see, the first part is the one part, that is A, which occupies the largest area of, I would say, maize grain, and that is nothing but, right, it is endosperm. Once again, it is endosperm. Let's go to the B1. See, B1 is here. So this is a kind of covering which is there, right? It's a kind of outer covering, and that is what is known as coleoptile. You know, there is something what is known as radicle and plumule. So it is a kind of covering to the plumule. Now let's go to the C wala part here. This part is what is radicle. As you can see here, I'm just showing it to you with my cursor here. And then let's talk about the fourth one. That is this D part here, right? Okay, let's see the answer, and it is nothing but a epithelial layer of cells, right? So that is about all the labeling part. Let's now go to the second question based on the diagram, right? Name the layer which is rich in protein. Once again, name the layer which is rich in protein, and the answer is alluron layer. As you can see there, right? It is alluron layer which is rich in proteins. Next question, name the outermost protective covering of a radical. See, we understood this is plumule, this is radical, and this is the outermost protective covering of radical, and you are supposed to name it, and that is coleorhiza. As you can see there, coleorhiza. Let's go to the fourth question, and that is, what is a grain? Now, this is something important, and you are supposed to answer it carefully because there's a difference, right? So let's see. Grain, it is a fruit in which the seed coat and the fruit wall, they are fused together to form a protective layer. Once again, it is the seed coat, fruit wall fused together to form a protective layer. That is what is a grain. And then comes the last question based on this particular diagram. In this given picture, this is a monocot seed or a dicot seed. That's what you're supposed to answer. Right? The answer is maize grain is a monocot seed. Right? So that is all about the diagram on maize grain answers. Let's go to the next question. And the B1, in that B, the first one is distinguish between apical, meristem, and cambium. So let's start and understand something about distinguish between. Again, a very easy question. Apical, right? As the name suggests, it is going to be located at the tips of the roots, stems, and young buds. On the other hand, if I talk about cambium, which is also known as lateral meristem, people, it is located below the barks of at the side, right? They are located inside the bark on the side of the stem. Next, apical meristem, it increases the height of the plant. So it grows, it helps the plant to grow vertically. It increases the height. And when I talk about cambium, it increases the diameter, girth, or width of the plant, right? So a very simple distinguish between apical and cambium meristem. Let's go to the next question. The second one in B, name the parts of the xylem tissue and give its function, right? So when I say parts of xylem tissue and its function, here are the 4 different cells by which xylem tissue is made, and each of them has been written down next to its function. So let's try to understand the first one. The first type of cells are tracheids, right? Because see, xylem is a complex tissue. It is made up of 4 different type of cells, right? So tracheids are the one to provide mechanical support to the plants and help in conduction of water and mineral upwards in the plant. That is the function of tracheids. The second one are known as vessels. They also provide support to the plant. The third one are known as xylem fibers, right? They are the one to give mechanical strength to the plant. By the way, just to let you know, tracheids, vessels, and xylem fibers, all these 3 are dead cells, right? And now comes the last one, which is the only living cell, and that is xylem parenchyma. It helps in the conduction of water and also storage of food, right? So that is what is the function of different cells which are a part of xylem. Let's go now to the next question, and that is question number 5A. Again, this is a diagram based question, people. So based on this diagram of neuron, couple of questions are asked, right? Obviously, I've already answered one question. So let's see the first question. Name the above given diagram. So we know this diagram is of neuron, which is scientifically known as neuron, commonly also known as nerve cell, right? Next question, label all the parts. See, they have given different parts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we are supposed to label each one of them. The first one are short branches, and they are known as dendrites. You can see the name here, right? Okay. The second one is actually what is known as cyton. Once again, it is known as cyton. Here, by mistake, they have written cell membrane. It is actually the cyton of the neuron, right? The third part is this part, right? And this is what is known as myelin sheath of the axon, right? Myelin sheath of the axon. You can also write as axon, right? And the last one is this terminal portion of the neuron, right? And they are what are known as axonal endings, nerve endings, terminal endings. Any of these answers would be correct, right? So there are the 4 parts of neuron. Let's go to the next question, and that is, what is the major function of this cell, right? What is the function of neuron? So we know, right, it is conduction of an impulse, right? It is electrochemical impulses which are conducted by this particular part, and that is neurons. Okay, let's go to the 4th question now. Where in the body these cells are found in most abundance, right? We know they are found in abundance in two main organs, that is brain and spinal cord, right? Brain and spinal cord contains millions of neurons. Okay, the last question in this is define tissue. So let's try to define tissue in a very simple way. Tissue is nothing but a group of specialized cells performing a specific function, right? So once again, they are a group of specialized cell performing a specific function. So that's about tissues. Now let's go to the question number B for that, the last main question, and that is first in that is define germination. So let's try to define germination, right? Let me just go this, yeah, here it is. So germination is the enlargement of an embryo to form seedling in the presence of favorable climatic condition, right? So we know it's enlargement of the seed develops inside the embryo, grows inside, and that is how it develops into a seedling. So this is what is I would say germination, but yeah, for that favorable climatic conditions are required. Okay, the next question is give any two disadvantages of self-pollination, right? So let us see what are the two disadvantages. First, there is no variation at all, right? Because the same genetic material will be passed on from one generation to another. There is no chance of variation. And because of that, the second point is the poor quality seeds, because there are no new characters which are going to be introduced in that particular seed. So the quality of seed is very poor. So these are the two disadvantages of self-pollination. Let's go to the last question of the entire test, people. What do you mean by artificial pollination, right? When I say artificial pollination, it is not done by nature, right? So who has to do it? Humans. So let's try to answer that. When man himself transfers the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of their own desired variety, such pollination is what is known as artificial pollination, right? So it is done personally, directly by the person, human beings, not by nature, by wind, by any other agent. And that is what is artificial pollination all about. And this were the answers of the entire test for 9th standard biology paper cyclic test 3. Hope you guys understood it well. Thank you so much. See you next time.